Let's talk about the bloodbath comment that Trump made and the apologist responses.
We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars if I get elected. Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
So my good friends over at Breaking Points are talking about how liberal media is smearing Donald Trump, saying that he's calling for a bloodbath. I don't know the exact wording that they use, but basically talking about how they're harping on this bloodbath comment and trying to make it something that it's not, taking his statements out of context, blah, 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 blah. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they are taking this out of context to some degree. That would not be surprising. It is what they do, right? Not justifying it, not trying to say it's okay, it's not a big deal, just pointing out the reality that, they exaggerate, not just him, but in general. That's what they do. They use this type of hyperbolic language, just like the people in independent media that are busy critiquing liberal media because of this whole scam of, liberal media is so horrible, mainstream media is so horrible, but us in our basements, we're not horrible, we're not greedy, we're not dishonest, we don't do whatever it takes to get clicks, unlike the mainstream media. Those guys, they always worried about money. We don't care about money. If I get 100 views, a million views, whatever. Right. So when I listen to what Trump said, I am not in any way agreeing with the apologist response, which is they're saying that he's just talking about a bloodbath in terms of financially. So, he's talking about job losses, people, taking jobs out of this country, and his response is to add tariffs, which is most likely going to, increase pressure on the consumers. You make the cars more expensive to import. They're not going to just stop importing the cars. The price is going to go up. So basically, he's talking about making things harder for Americans, harder than it already is. Right now, we're struggling to pay for groceries. We're struggling to pay rent. And buying vehicles right now. I was looking at some trucks. I wanted to buy a truck, and new truck, the base model trucks can be $70,000, $80,000. That's insane. Can you imagine one of those $80,000 base model trucks being manufactured in Mexico and being hit with some kind of crazy tariff? So what is it going to be? 90,000, 100,000 for a base model? That's what he's suggesting. So if you ask me, that would be the bloodbath, right? But the apologists are saying that the bloodbath is the financial whatever. If he's not there to do his wonderful thing, which is going to most likely hurt the consumers, then, under Biden, it's going to be a bloodbath, right? However, if you listen to what he says, he also says immediately after it, he says, that'll be the least of it. That'll be the least of it. And I noticed that the apologists, because I saw this point was also brought up, I think CNN had brought it up, and the apologist that was on the panel didn't want to address or respond to the that'll be the least of it part. Because, of course, that's an inconvenient part of what he said. What does he mean by that'll be the least of it? I think he's talking about that there's going to be something more than just a financial issue with the jobs being exported. Because when he says it's going to be a bloodbath, and he says that'll be the least of it, that means he's talking about two bad things, right? To say that'll be the least of it, that's saying that there's this one thing that's bad, but there's going to be an even bigger thing that's even worse, right? What's that even bigger thing that's going to be worse? Well, he's talking about vehicles and tariffs and jobs being sent out, right? So if he says that'll be the least of it, right? Because he's not talking about anything else, right? He's talking about the tariffs and whatever. So if he's saying that'll be the least of it, he's saying that what's going to happen with the jobs, without his leadership, that'll be the least of it. Why? Because it's going to be a bloodbath, right? It's going to be a bloodbath. So you worried about exporting jobs, whatever? That'll be the least of it. There's going to be a bloodbath. Now, because this is not a partisan media channel, I'm not going to automatically, even making that position, I'm not going to automatically, in that context, attach the bloodbath to the thing that liberal media would love for it to be represented as, that it's going to be blood in the streets, literally. It's a possibility that could be what he's saying or nodding to, but I can't directly go to that conclusion. I would more like to go to the conclusion of, an extremely chaotic situation, which could include blood in the streets. But it's not specifically. It's not I would not jump to that it's a literal statement, like literally bloodbath, right? But it could be just absolute chaos. I mean, think about the way he's talked about what things are going to be like in this country if he doesn't win. He's talked about how things are now, right? How bad they are, how awful they are. He's talked about how bad they could be if he doesn't win, right? So when he does that, he talks about stuff like socialism, whatever, the collapse of the country, we're going to lose our country, right? So that, I think you could describe as a bloodbath, which again, might include actual blood, but that's not necessary, for his word usage. Now, the other factor is that for those playing games and pretending like he said something completely harmless and it's not a big deal, it's just liberal media going crazy, those people either, just haven't been paying attention, or their comprehension is difficult, or they don't know Trump. They don't know anything about Trump. They just discovered Trump yesterday. Anyone who knows Trump knows that Trump, as much of a buffoon as he is clever enough to play games with his words, like how he's talking about abortion. He's kind of trying to ride the fence, we should talk about, he doesn't want to say, like, let's ban it, but he wants to virtue signal to people who want it banned, right? But he also wants to not lose people who don't want it banned, so he kind of like does this little dance, right? Do a little dance, bump, bump, bump. So that's what he does, right? So, he's the type of guy that he's not going to directly say, like, we're going to have riots in the streets. I mean, he well may say that. Like, he actually did say something like that in the past, but he is clever enough to say something in basically coded language. He does this all the time. I mean, he's the type of guy who is clever enough to, on a daily basis, keep talking about, we need to go and, I don't have to worry what I want to say. Well, let's look at Letitia James, right? Letitia James, man, she's out of control. Something's going to happen to her at some point because the people aren't going to stand for it. I don't know, man. This is really, 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 you're pushing things. I'm hearing people saying stuff like they might go do something to her or whatever. Right? He's clever enough to say that, on a daily basis. But at some point in time say, we need to be peaceful. And I'm against violence. I'm against lawlessness. We need to follow the law. I don't like what these people are doing, but we got to do it the right way, right? So after weeks of saying all this stuff, which sounded very, very dangerous and threatening, he's clever enough to, at one point in time, say the exact opposite, because he knows how buffoonish the kind of people who would like a buffoon like Trump are, and that you can easily, like, they so want any excuse to justify their support of him that all he's got to do is give them some crumbs, right? The crumbs of that one time where he said, do the right thing, follow the law. They will completely wash away all the other stuff he's ever said, all the other just inflammatory language, pretend like it didn't happen, pretend like it doesn't matter. Oh, it's freedom of speech. He's just talking, right? And then it will hang their hat on the one time he said we should follow the law. But he said follow the law, but he said follow the law, but he specifically said follow the law. They want to misconstrue what he's saying and try and twist his words and. He never said that anybody should do anything to Letitia James. He just said other people might, but he also, more importantly, said that people should follow the law. That's what he said. He was for following law and order, and you guys are smearing him. Stochastic terrorism. Look it up, right? If I have 100 million followers and I want something to happen to someone, I don't have to say go hurt that person. I just know that because of so many people listening to me, there's going to be a fraction of them that are nuts. So all I need to do is say things in a certain way to put ideas in their heads, right? And then have a high probability that they may actually do something to the person. For example, this woman, she's crazy. I don't know what she's doing, and this is unfair. She's an evil person. To dehumanize her, right? She's trash. She's a satanic demon, whatever, right? So that's in the mind of the people listening. Don't even think of this person as a human. And then I say, and you know what? She should watch what she's saying, because I hear that she likes to go in certain neighborhoods and she likes to wear these short dresses and she doesn't have any decency at all, showing all of her cleavage and all this kind of stuff. What happens if she goes in the wrong street, late at night and somebody sees her and then they like me and they go in and they do the wrong thing. I don't stand for it. It's wrong. They shouldn't do anything. We got to follow the law, right? That's how it works, man. By me literally calling for people to not do anything, or saying, no, you shouldn't do anything. It's a reverse psychology. To a wacko that I know is very likely listening to me, once I've introduced the idea of somebody harming them and the idea of a sexual assault scenario, all of a sudden their mind runs with it. And then I have deniability where it's like, I didn't say to go do anything. I said specifically don't do anything. Like, that's how the game is played, man. That's how it's played. You can accept reality that this is what people do, right? Joe Biden's doing it right now, playing little games, talking out of both sides of his mouth. He's supporting the genocide in Israel. In Gaza, while at the same time, we're sending them food and this and that, and I'm putting a lot of pressure, right? That's how they do. How are you going to recognize Joe Biden talking out of two sides of his mouth, but you can't recognize Trump doing the same damn thing, especially after we have the experience of how this goes down and the results, right? We've seen this movie before, and we see how it ended up, right? People got violent January 6th, right? And then what was the explanation? Oh, he said peace, he said peace, peace. What about this? Oh, he said peace. What about this? You know, ignore everything else that he said. Ignore everything else that he did. Ignore the months and months, the track record, the pattern of behavior, right? Ignore his response to when the violence was happening, his lack of response, right? Ignore all the evidence and play stupid. He's got to say, you guys go kill them. You guys go do a riot. And unless he specifically says that, and especially when at one point in time, all he got to do is say it once, right? He could push for something every day for a year. But on the final day, he just got to say, well, we should follow the law, and I'm a guy for peace, and I believe in non-violent protests, right? That's all he got to say. And what he said, that's how dishonest people are in this country, right? So, is the liberal media exaggerating what he said? The same way they said before, something like, he had said something and they said he was calling for violence or he was calling for people to attack someone, but that's not what he said. He did say something that was dangerous. This is another incident. He did say something that was dangerous that definitely could be stochastic terrorism type thing, where he said one thing, but he wants to convey a different meaning. But he said a specific thing, and they responded not like he said a specific thing. They responded as if he said something else, right? So I'm sure they exaggerated what he said, but you know, the people who are out there defending him. You ever see me out here defending Joe Biden? I don't defend corrupt politicians, right? If Joe Biden says something and people misconstrue what he said, so be it. I don't give a damn. I don't need to be out here defending Joe Biden, right? So why people need to be defending this buffoon, lying, just scumbag? What kind of person finds the need to defend someone as awful as Donald Trump, right? Joe Biden, I have a lot of problems with him, but he ain't no Donald Trump. He ain't on that level of depravity, right? And I don't even feel the need to defend him, right? Generally speaking, I don't need to defend elites with a lot of power and money. They don't need my help, right? Donald Trump doesn't need anybody defending him. So why is it that people are out there defending him, making excuses for his behavior? What's the point? That's for you to decide and comment below. This is Baby Sean. Leave in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. I'm out.